Once upon a time, there was a king who had a daughter, more beautiful than anyone could imagine. But she was so proud and haughty that she refused every suitor who came to ask for her hand. She sent them away one after another and ridiculed them for their looks or manners. One day, the king decided to host a grand feast. He invited all the young men from near and far who might want to marry his daughter. The men were arranged in a row according to their rank. First came the kings, then the grand dukes, then the princes, earls, barons, and the gentry. The king's daughter was led through the line, but to every man, she had something to criticize. One was too fat, and she called him the wine cask. Another was too tall, and she said, long and thin has little in. The third man was too short, and she said, short and thick is never quick. The fourth man was too pale, and she said, as pale as death. The fifth man was too red, and she called him a fighting cock. The sixth man was too crooked, and she laughed, saying, a green log dried behind the stove. But when she came to a good king who stood high in the row and saw that his chin was a little crooked, she laughed and said, he has a chin like a thrush's beak. From that moment, he was known as King Thrushbeard. The old king, watching his daughter mock every man, became very angry. He swore that she would marry the first beggar who came to his door. A few days later, a fiddler came to the palace, playing music for a small amount of alms. When the king heard him, he said, let him come up. The fiddler, wearing dirty, ragged clothes, came inside and sang before the king and his daughter. When he finished, he asked for a small gift. The king smiled and said, your song has pleased me so much that I will give you my daughter as a wife. The king's daughter was horrified, but the king said, my daughter, I've taken an oath to give you the very first beggar man that comes to my door. I will keep my word. The priest was called, and before she knew it, the marriage was complete. The king then told his daughter, now you are a beggar's wife, and it is not right for you to stay in my palace. Go away with your husband. The fiddler led her by the hand, and she had no choice but to leave the palace with him. They walked for a long time until they came to a lush forest. After a while, the princess asked, to whom does this beautiful forest belong? It belongs to King Thrushbeard, the fiddler replied. If you had chosen him, it would have been yours. The princess sighed deeply and said, oh, if only I had chosen King Thrushbeard. They continued walking and came to a beautiful meadow. The princess asked again, to whom does this lovely meadow belong? It belongs to King Thrushbeard, said the fiddler. If you had married him, it would have been yours. The princess sighed once more. Oh, if only I had chosen King Thrushbeard. Next, they came to a great town. The princess asked again, to whom does this grand town belong? It belongs to King Thrushbeard, said the fiddler. If you had chosen him, it would have been yours. The princess once again sighed. Oh, how I wish I had chosen King Thrushbeard. The fiddler was now irritated. It doesn't please me to hear you always wishing for another husband. Am I not good enough for you? Finally, they came to a small, shabby hut. The princess asked, what a small, miserable hovel. To whom does it belong? It belongs to me, the fiddler said. It is now yours too as my wife. This is where we will live together. The princess had to bend down to enter through the low door. She asked, where are the servants? What servants? Said the fiddler. You must do everything yourself. Make a fire and get the water to cook our meal. I'm tired. The princess had never worked, made a fire, or cooked. The fiddler had to help to get anything done. Her hands became sore from the work. After their simple meal, the fiddler said, you must wake up early and take care of the house. For a few days, they lived in this way. Soon they ran out of food, and the fiddler said, we can't continue like this. You will need to weave baskets. He went out, cut some willows, and brought them home. The princess tried to weave, but the tough willows wounded her delicate hands. "I see this won't work," said the fiddler. "Maybe you can try spinning. You might be better at that." But when she tried to spin, the rough thread cut her hands, and her soft fingers started bleeding. "Look," said the fiddler, "you can't do any kind of work. I've made a bad bargain with you. Now I'll try selling pots and earthenware in the market. You will sit there and sell them." The princess thought, "What if someone from my father's kingdom sees me? They will surely mock me and laugh at me." But there was no choice. She had to do it or starve. So she went to the market and began to sell the pots. To her surprise, people bought from her because she was beautiful, and they paid well. Some even left the pots with her and paid without taking them. The princess and the fiddler lived on this earning for as long as they could. Once the money ran out, the fiddler bought more pots for the princess to sell. She sat at a corner in the marketplace and set her pots around it. But suddenly, a drunken soldier came galloping through the market. He rode straight into her pots, knocking them over and breaking them into pieces. She was devastated and didn't know what to do. "What will I tell my husband?" she cried. She ran home to tell him. He wasn't angry. Instead, he said, "Who would sit in the marketplace selling pots? It's obvious you're not suited for this sort of work. I have gone to the king's palace and asked them if they need a kitchen maid. They've agreed to hire you. At least you'll get food for free." Now the princess worked as a kitchen maid. She had to do all the dirty work the cook told her to do. She tied jars around her waist and filled these little jars with leftovers to take home. One day, the king's eldest son was getting married. The princess stood by the door, watching as guests arrived, each more beautiful than the last. The smell of delicious food filled the air, and the servants gave her meager morsels, which she put in her jars to take home. Seeing the festivities, the princess felt a deep sadness. She cursed her pride and haughtiness that had led her to this state of poverty. Suddenly, the king's son entered, dressed in velvet and silk, gold chains around his neck. When he saw the princess, he took her hand and asked her to dance. She hesitated and stepped back, afraid, for she saw that it was King Thrushbeard, the suitor she had mocked. She tried to pull away, but he pulled her into the hall. As she moved, the strings holding the jars around her waist broke, and the jars fell and broke, spilling food everywhere. The guests laughed, and the princess was so ashamed that she wished she could disappear. She ran toward the door, but someone caught her. It was King Thrushbeard. He smiled kindly and said, "Do not be afraid. I am the fiddler who lived with you in the poorhouse. I was also the soldier who destroyed your pots. All of this was to teach you a lesson, to humble you for the way you mocked me." The princess wept bitterly and said, "I have wronged you. I am not worthy to be your wife." But King Thrushbeard comforted her. "The difficult days are over now. Let's celebrate our wedding." The maids helped her into the most beautiful clothes. Her father and the entire court came to wish her happiness in her marriage to King Thrushbeard, and the joy truly began at last.